Ready?
Yep.
All right, good evening and welcome to the March 19th, 2024 work session of the McMinnville Water and Light Commission. I'd like to ask the clerk to do a roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor Dropkin,
Here.
Commissioner Tate,
Here.
Commissioner Tankersley,
Here.
Commissioner Gormley is excused this evening, and Commissioner Christensen.
Here. Thank you. And then we are going to jump right in to our topic, which is fiscal year 24-25 draft personnel budget.
Yep. No, it's actually Marcy's going to start off.
Marcy's going to start.
Yeah,
That
let's
makes
start
sense.
us off. We'll get to the presentation here.
I had to click in there one time, Marcy, and get your slides going.
What was that? Click on it.
Just click on the top of one time, and it should advance after that.
Okay. There we go. So tonight we're talking, good afternoon. Tonight we're talking about our personnel budget. That's the purpose of this workshop. What we're going to discuss tonight, I'm going to go through quickly the timeline. We're going through a series of workshops this spring, and so I'll go through that a little bit. Then we'll look at some budget highlights from the personnel budget and then talk about next steps for us. So last month was our first workshop, and that was in February. We did the capital budget. Tonight we're working on the personnel budget. Next month will be the O&M budget review, and then after that we'll have that full draft budget that we're used to seeing with adoption in June. And this budget is for the one that's coming in the future, so the one that will start here in July 1st. I have a couple of slides on our strategic focus. It's good to remind ourselves of these things when we're looking through our budget. So I have our mission statement up there and our core values. The next slide is from our strategic plans. We did the strategic plan in 2023, as you remember. We came up with these 4 key objectives. So organizational focus is one of those objectives that is all about our personnel. But I think it's also important to remember that to do all 4 of these objectives, we need the right personnel in the right positions doing their roles and responsibilities in order to get them done. So now we'll look a little bit at our overall budget. So this is a draft. It is going to change over the next couple of months as we're working on the O&M budget and getting things finalized. But this is where it is today. So think of it as a snapshot in time for where we're at today. The top line is the adopted budget that we're currently working in. And then the bottom line is the draft budget for personnel expenses, and that has wages, benefits, taxes in there. Change over the previous year's budget is 9.4% overall.
Excuse me, Marcy, are you going to talk about why the budget's increasing that large percentage?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. I thought you did. So I have some information up here about our personnel. I won't go through it all, but I thought the last 3 were interesting. So we have 10 employees who have over 20 years of experience. We also have 18 employees that have been hired in the last 3 years. It's a big number. I think it was 28%. And no retirements in this next fiscal year. We've had a steady stream of retirements going back to 2017, but we won't have one. We don't anticipate we'll have one this next fiscal year. So for this next year, we're proposing that we add 2 new positions. And those are the 2 new positions that we're looking at adding. Those dollar amounts do have benefits. It's the total compensation for that position. So it does have the benefits in there, not just the wages. So the first position that we have listed there is a line worker. We would consider that a succession position. We have identified a line worker who we anticipate will likely retire in the next 2 years. We would like to go out for a line worker, hopefully get a line worker, but there's a chance that we will struggle with that. And so another option for us would be to do an apprentice. And if we do an apprentice, then that's a 3.5-year process to get them up to speed. So this would get them started in that process. The second position up there is a controller. And so that would be someone in the finance department. So if you think about the finance department, they process transactions and then they report on those transactions. So the controller would be that person who's doing that day-to-day work on transactions and reporting of the transactions. That person we would envision would be a supervisor to the staff that are in that department. And so this next slide, I have an org chart for the finance director. So the finance director there currently supervises 4 positions. He supervises the IT manager, the senior accountant, the accountant, and the customer service manager. Those are the 4 positions that the finance director currently supervises. We're proposing to have a controller, and so that controller would then be the supervisor of the senior accountant and accountant. On the very bottom, we have another position. It's a half FTE. Our conservation assistant is now doing our AP clerk position, which is about a half FTE. So she's working half of the time in finance and then half the time in conservation. And she's supervised by our power resource manager. So different department for that. And then what this would do for us, we consider this to be a succession position also, but it's different from a typical one. So a typical one, you might have a position that's getting ready to retire, and then you have a position coming on that, or you have a new hire coming on, and then there's some overlap between the 2 positions before the one person retires. What we have in this circumstance is we have the finance director, senior accountant, and accountant all reaching a point where they could retire within the next 5 years. So we anticipate that 2 of those are highly likely, and then one we'll find out. But so we could have a whole turnover in the finance department in the next 5 years, potentially. So this position would be one of those positions that would come in, learn how we do things here, be able to be that anchor in that department as we go through that transition with our future staff. It also will allow our finance director to be more looking out over the horizon, not just the day-to-day, but looking out and making some decisions on some big projects that are coming up and things that need some analysis, things like that. Be able to get away from the day-to-day and do some more of that kind of a work. Any questions on that?
Would the controller be a CPA ideally?
I.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet. Something else that's in our personnel budget, our seasonal positions, we're proposing 6 for this summer. And I believe we had 3 last year, that might 3 or 4. The seasonal positions are about a quarter of an FTE. They're here for usually about 3 months. And they serve they do a couple of good things for us. So one is that if we do have an open position, then potentially we would be able to have the opportunity to hire from a seasonal pool if we had a good person in there. Dallas, we've done that for Dallas. Dallas is our gentleman in yellow. He's one of our water treatment plant operators, and he's doing a great job for us. And he was a seasonal for us for 2 summers. And doing quite well. Also, it gives exposure to men and women who might want to go into the utilities. And so the gentleman in white up there, he's working for a contract consultant group. And he's doing electric design work, I believe is what he's doing. But we have had a number that have come through the doors and are doing electrical engineering and different jobs like that. So
Are those from the college program in the summer that through
they,
NADP or those?
some are, some aren't. Yeah, some we hired directly. One we hired from Clackamas Community College. They have the water program there, and we brought him over from that. So. In the budget, we'll also see some departmental moves, and it's for these 3 positions there on the left. Engineering Operation Director, this year in the budget, he's in the electric operations department, and he's in the water operations department, and we're looking to move him to administration. Just seems to be a more logical place for him to be for the work, because he's working in both electrical and water operations and electrical and water engineering. Seems administration would be a better fit for him. Payroll administrator, we're moving her from finance to administration. So the payroll administrator was the payroll administrator / AP clerk. And so her AP clerk duties have gone to our conservation assistant, and the payroll administrator is then able to help me with some HR work. So that's the reason for that move. And then the conservation assistant AP clerk in our current budget is in the conservation department, and we're moving her to be a half conservation, half finance. So 3 moves there. This is a summary of changes within departments for our full-time equivalent positions. So these will make sense now when we look at them. So under administration, the E&O director and the payroll administrator are moving to that department. Those are existing positions. The finance director or finance department, the controller would be a new one. Payroll administrators coming out of there, and then half of an FTE for the conservation assistant is going into finance. Customer service, we have a CSR who's a part-time CSR, and she's working a little bit more than what we had originally budgeted. So her hours are there. There's a chance, we'll see what the future holds, but maybe that would be a position we might come back in the future and say we want that to be a full-time position, especially maybe with the stormwater change, utility change that might happen or something like that. But for now, it's a part-time position. The electric operations, the E&O director, part of his 0.6 of his FTE is in there. We're moving him out of there, adding a line worker. Conservation, moving half of an FTE out of that department. Water operations, that's the other part of the E&O director. And then we have our seasonals. We had some last year, so the net effect of that is 0.35 FTE change for that. Then here's our total. So each row is a different year. The first 4 rows or columns, sorry, first 4 columns are the last 4 years, including this year. And then the grayed out line column is the proposed for next year. So we're looking at 2.55 change overall in FTE from this year to next year. And I think so that's my last slide on FTEs. Any questions about that so far?
I was just gonna ask the line worker, if you end up not finding a fully qualified line worker and you have to bring somebody in, would that number would be lower for the first 1 to
Yes.
3 years? They'd
Yes,
have
that
to
would
work
be,
into
yeah,
that
that's at the
position, so
high point there.
That's if you find the most qualified
Yeah.
person to do it.
Yeah. Personnel insurance. So with our insurance starts every January 1st. We currently go through CIS, City County Insurance for our insurance, and we do have an employee cost share for that insurance. So 5% of the employee's portion of the employee's premium is what the employee will pay. And then if they add dependents onto their insurance, then they're paying 8% of the additional. Every February, at the end of February, we get preliminary numbers for what the rate increases are going to be. And then CIS finalizes those in May. And then we sign up for insurance in July. So we did just receive those preliminary ones at the end of the month. And so they, medical at 10%, it's pretty high. And then we have vision at 6%, dental at 7.5%. I did put along the bottom what the increases have been over time for those 3 categories. Keep in mind that we had a pandemic in there. And so like, for example, the dental insurance, our dental rates haven't gone up since 2019. And it actually decreased in 2020 or 2021 because people weren't going to the dentist, back then. So, but we now have some increases, and so over this next month, we're going to look at the different insurances that are offered and make sure we have a good value for us.
Marcy, I think I remember that a few years ago, we made a change and we have we contribute to an employee plan where the employee can use that money to pay the part that the coverage doesn't, and that way we can get a higher deductible. Is that,
Yeah, so
that's still happening?
that is still happening. We have a high deductible plan. It's not it's not named a high deductible plan, but it is a high deductible plan. It's at the same high deductible rate as the high deductible plan. And then we pair it with a VIBA. So that VIBA account is one where an employee can, if they need to meet their deductible, they can use their VIBA if they need to. Otherwise, that would be available for any kind of medical.
So is that folded into these numbers that the VIBA account that we pay for, or how does that work?
So the VIBA is not in any of these numbers, but you'll see it is in that top number. It's in the top personnel, and it's gonna be in the personnel budget.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we will see that. Okay.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is just the insurance premiums.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
No increase for the life insurance. This next year. I threw this up there, so paid leave Oregon or paid leave through Hartford. That's that state mandated plan. It started in September. It's equivalent plan, so we're not using the state's plan. We're using a third party for that. And it's a low amount. I think it's somewhere, I don't know, we might pay $10,000 a year for it this year, something like that. But overall for employees and Water and Light, I think it was $25,000 and we do a cost share. So our employees are paying 60% of that. And I throw it on there because just to remind us that we have this and that over time we're going to learn more about this and how it affects our employees use it and consider it as part of our overall benefits package. HERS rates change every 2 years, and so this is the year that they are not changing. They changed last year and they'll change again in the next budget cycle. So but those are our rates. We do have 12 employees in tiers 1 and 2 for that rate up there, and then all the other employees are in the OPSRP group. We don't pay anything into this Oregon Savings Growth Plan, but I put it up here just to remind us that we have it. It's a voluntary plan. It's deferred compensation. And so our employees can participate if they so choose. And we have 69% of our employees participating right now. This slide shows our total compensation. So it answers the question, what percentage of total compensation is wages? That's basically what it is. So 64, and then I have some comparables down there at the bottom. And but it gives us a view of what we're paying in wages compared to all the other things that go into.
Why would that be different for a different retailer? Different benefit bundles?
Different benefit costs. Yeah, that would be a big one. The retirement might be different or through something that some other source or something like that. And then this is the final slide that I have. So this is our payroll total. The top part is by department, and then the bottom part is by division. So I think our budget is done by division. But we think at least I do, I think in terms of department. And so I like that department view where we can see what's happening there. This has last year's budget, what we're estimating as the final. And then what we're proposing for this next year. If you go down to that center part that shows the different total rows, the total department payroll expense is the calculation for the departments. And then under that, we're subtracting out the city allocation that we've calculated to get a net amount. And then we're adding in capitalized payroll. So the capitalized amounts aren't up above. So we're adding that in for a total payroll cost.
So what would we capitalize payroll for? An example, please.
projects, water projects where the crew does the work.
So our crew puts piping in the ground or
Right.
something. We have to capitalize the pipe, so
Yeah.
we capitalize the payroll. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And what questions do we have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
I think jumping out at me. Sounds
Oh,
like you
good.
have a good plan.
Thank you.
Very-
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the session is adjourned at 5:48 PM and we'll take a 12-minute break with plenty of sandwiches if anyone would like one. Help yourself.
Yeah, my sandwich is
The
spicy.
pick- the pickles
It's
are
good,
too.
but it's making my, it's making me cough and my nose run.
Eyes
It's
water.
a good thing.
Means the sinuses are
Nice. Spicy.
Maybe not good for a meeting, but good.
Legislative.
the 2 million.
Yeah.
Zone two. Zone two.
Yeah.
So how,
Thinking about the cost of that.
that's what.
Yeah, so.
No, I had to run around. What did you just say?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I.
So.
I need to
are you
LCD
speaking-
recording.
Yes. Trina,
Yeah.
are we recording still?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still on YouTube.
Is there any reason to be? Can we shut it down until we're ready? It doesn't make sense.